What's up, everyone? It's the Autistic Scyther here, and a wise man once said, speak softly and carry a big stick. And honestly, so many people have taken that advice to heart. Specifically, many video game characters who decide to do so, but instead of a bludgeon, they decide to take a stick with a pointy end to jab people with. And of course, what better way to talk about them than to make a countdown about them. So in this case, it's time to count down my top 10 favorite lance/spear wielders in video games. Like I did for my top 10 favorite sword wielders in video games. One per franchise. And I don't have to have played the video game beforehand. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off at number 10, we have Orca from The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And naturally enough, we're starting this one off with a kind of an interesting character, as Orca and his brother Sturgeon originally started off wanting to become great heroes when they were younger, training against different monsters with their swords, and hoping to become great swordsmen within Hyrule. However, fate had different plans for Orca, as an injury more or less put a kibosh to his dream, thus basically causing him to basically retire back to Outset Island, and as a weapon master and I guess I'd say combat teacher. Which, when it comes down to the Wind Waker, it's thanks to him that we end up getting our sword, that Link ends up getting his sword in order to save his sister Arl from the Helmarok King. And not only that, he trains Link in sword tactics, utilizing just nothing more than a simple spear. And he's pretty skilled with the spear, being able to parry most of Link's sword strikes. That being said, if you end up finding in heroes' crests around Hyrule, or around the area, around the ocean surrounding in the Wind Waker, he can teach you your ultimate move. He can teach you the ultimate move of the Hurricane Spin. And basically, even testing you to get a hit on him 50 times. In which he basically he sees you as a master, and basically passing it down to him. Granted, it's sad we don't see him fighting as much as we do most other characters, but in fairness, it's kind of a perfect way to start this off. Honestly, I wish we get more involving someone like him in the near future. Here's hoping. Moving on next at number 9, we have Bolt from Crypt of the Necrodancer. Oh boy, what can I say about Crypt of the Necrodancer except I've never played the game. Granted, I really want to, but considering how I have a hard time with roguelikes, yeah, it's gonna take some time. But even with that, Crypt of the Necrodancer has some interesting characters within the game. And this includes the likes of characters like Cadence, Arya, and the Monk. However, we really don't know much about how Bolt, other than that, as she comes from a distant land, wielding only her spear. And even further than that, her entire playstyle is basically that the music is twice as fast, being a reference to her tachycardia, which is a heart condition where the heart beats faster than a normal human's heart is said to beat at, which is kind of interesting. Additionally, around the time that Bolt was introduced into Crypt of the Necrodancer, she was basically named after Usain Bolt, who basically was a track and field record holder around that time. And the fact that I'm realizing that the black character is named after the then fastest man alive, don't know if Usain Bolt's still holding the record, makes me wonder what's going on there. Again, that being said, it's kind of an interesting sort of thing for a spear wielder or lance wielder to basically utilize. Kind of fun. Moving on next, at number 8, we have Sir Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. Another game I have yet to play, but again, I really want to play, considering how next year I am planning on trying to clear my entire video game backlog. Which, if anyone wants to know how my backlog is doing next year, let me know in the comments, and I'll basically consider it. But that being said, yeah, kind of makes sense that a knight would essentially be on this list. And honestly, considering how back in the 1980s, Ghosts and Goblins was a Nintendo hard type video game, yeah, it kind of fits that he would have the fortitude to basically make use of his jousting lance. Especially since at the beginning, both he and his girlfriend, Princess Prin, interesting name, were basically having a picnic in a graveyard, only to be interrupted when the Demon King Astaroth kidnaps Princess Prin, and Arthur has to put on his armor and basically head out to rescue her, facing off against many different members of Astaroth's demonic army and many other supernatural beings by basically throwing his jousting lance in order to skewer them. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. That being said, yeah, that can only get you so far, because if you do end up taking a hit, if you end up getting hit once, Arthur gets stripped down to his gitch. And then if you get hit a second time, he dies. Yeah. This game is hard. But that being said, considering how Arthur has stood the test of time, to the point that he's even made an appearance as a playable fighter in Marvel vs. Capcom, in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, yeah, it really does say a lot when you think about it. I mean, he even makes use of his lance in many of his moves, especially his hyper combo. One of his hyper combos. Yeah. Honestly, proves the test of time. Just gotta say it. Moving on next at number 7, we have Yamato Man from Mega Man 6. Oh boy, we're back with another Mega Man entry. And yes, another one from Mega Man 6. Which honestly really does say a lot, since the previous one involved the representative from England. But this time it's the representative from Japan. And naturally, at first glance you wouldn't expect him to utilize a spear, since he basically is a robot master based on a samurai. But even with that, kind of makes the most sense, as many samurai are kind of known to be skilled in many different forms of weaponry, including lances and naginata and spears. I mean, his entire stage is basically Japan in a nutshell, from the fact that the first thing you see is Mount Fuji in the background, and he has enemies based on Jiraiya and based on individuals like Jiraiya. And then, when you face off against him, yeah, he's basically gonna make use of the Yamato spear, just basically throwing spears at you and spinning it to try and deflect projectiles. Granted, the fact that his weakness to Silver Tomahawk is basically kind of the Fire Emblem school of weapon and weakness, being that axes best lances. I gotta say, it's the best thing that they ever did for a robot master. Granted, I know I'm gonna have some more in the near future, so bear with me. Moving on next at number 6, we have Sirfetch'd from Pokemon Sword and Shield. Oh boy! If there ever was a Pokemon that I was hyped, that got a lot of attention around Pokemon Sword and Shield's hype season before it got released, it was Farfetch'd. Since naturally, when it comes down to it, everyone saw Farfetch'd as a terrible Pokemon. So I was hyped when Galarian Farfetch'd was introduced, and even more so when Sirfetch'd was revealed. I mean, I was in a bank when I saw it, so yeah, you knew things got crazy. But even with that, granted, Sirfetch'd is not only a knight, but basically a Pokemon that wields a giant leek lance. And yes, for most people that don't know, that is a lance, not a sword. Granted, that being said, even with that, it actually makes use of some pretty solid moves, especially due to being a fighting type. From moves like Brutal Swing to First Impression, Leaf Blade, Aerial Ace, and even its own signature move, Meteor Assault, where it points its leek lance at the opponent before charging at them in order to deal damage to them, while lowering its stats as a result. honestly, it really does say a lot. And while I have used Surfetch once or twice, it's enjoyable every single time I end up getting one. That's all I know. This will be continued in part 2.